Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And if you have ever wondered if you can sell from the heart, be authentic, and get sales, plus how to use a book to massively build your business, then you do not want to miss today's episode of the Author to Authority podcast. And I am so honored and thrilled to have two amazing men who I've worked with now for, 6 years.
6, yeah.
6 years.
Oh, wow.
So Larry Levine, who is the author of Selling from the Heart, and his partner, Darrell Amy, who is the author of Revenue Growth Engine. And you guys have had this incredible journey. So Larry was actually on the podcast. So yesterday, so right now it's August 17th. Yesterday, we celebrated the 400th episode of the podcast.
Wow. Congratulations.
But Larry was actually like my third or fourth podcast interview that I did. So we wanted to have Larry and Darrell back on the show. So Larry, Darrell, why don't you guys take a few minutes, give yourselves a quick introduction, and then we'll go from there.
Me first? Hey, Darrell, you're allowing me to go first? Hey, by the way, you know what I really like about this, Kim, and then I'll just roll. I was on the podcast before Darrell, so that's all that really matters, Kim. Sorry, Darrell, but
we're not competitive around here at Selling from the Heart.
No, not at all.
This is super cool, Kim. And for those who aren't familiar with Selling from the Heart, my name is Larry Levine. I'm the author of Selling from the Heart. I convinced Darrell years and years ago, hey, let's start a podcast. The podcast kind of launched this whole journey together. So I co-hosted Selling from the podcast with Darrell. Podcast has been going, 6 years now. And it was really from the podcast that the book stemmed. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And you've been there right with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And I'm Darrell, and I'm Larry's co-host on the Selling from the Heart podcast. And I am passionate about helping companies grow. So after we got Selling from the Heart published, thanks to Kim and her wonderful team at RTI, I was able to also put together a book, something that had been on my bucket list for a long time. And Revenue Growth Engine was published in 2020. And so I get to, in addition to working with Selling from the Heart, where we coach sales teams in highly relational industries, how to be super successful, I also get to work with entrepreneurs that want to accelerate their growth, helping them build revenue growth engines. And Kim, I got to say, the book has been super helpful in that direction. And I couldn't have done it without you. Larry may have been able to do it without you, but I'm pretty sure.
I won't answer that one. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you both on here, because, we have an audience of consultants, professionals, speakers, thought leaders, and you guys are all of those. And so I thought it would be so great to have you on, because not only do you have your respective expertise, but you're walking the walk that the audience needs to know about. They need to know that there's people out there that are doing the things that are getting them visibility, that are showing their credibility, that, are becoming, you guys are becoming such recognized experts and authorities in your field. So we're going to have a conversation that just kind of jumps all over the place today, because there's so many angles, and this will be an extended episode. So first of all, Larry, just because I do a lot of the talking, what do you remember about us meeting and working together?
Well, so this was interesting, because I got to spin this a little bit, because Darrell was the one who found you first. So yes. I remember, Darrell, we went on a long road trip and we had a long discussion, basically Darrell gnawing on my ear to convince me to write the book. So then I agreed to this. Well, then I said, if I'm going to write this, I need some help. I need some guidance. I've never done this before. Wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, I could start writing some thoughts and things like that, but I wouldn't know how to package it and so forth. And Darrell could probably spin off of this in a second, but Darrell goes, oh, let me just do a little bit of research. And I don't know the research that Darrell did, but somehow it led him to you. And I remember before we agreed to agree, we just had a conversation. And what was really interesting about it was, and Darrell and I both believe this, is if you want to engage in really deep conversation fast, find people who are like-minded, like-hearted, share the same beliefs, the missions, the values that you do, and watch what happens next. And that's really what happened. But I'll throw it Darrell's way, because I mean, it's been a while, because I mean, we've been now with you 6 years at least. Darrell's got to tell the story on how he found you, because I just believe things happen for a reason. You find the right people at the right time in your life for the right reason.
Yeah, I don't know how we found Kim. I'm so glad we did. And Kim's a fellow.
Hey, Darrell, just say this: whatever search engine, whatever things you put in there, Kim, you did a masterful job, because you led them right to you.
Well, in full disclosure, Kim and I are both Canadians. We're from Ontario, and so it was really cool actually to find. And maybe that's what stood out, to find a book editor and producer in Ontario was really cool. But however, I found Kim. The problem was we had come to this conclusion that Larry needed to write this book. It'd been something that he'd wanted to do for a long time. And the reality was, at that point, it was really just a black box. Like, what in the world do you do to go from what's in your mind to actually having something for sale, designed, laid out, printed, edited, formatted. I mean, all of this, it was just a big, mysterious black box we were looking into. And, you can start to do a little bit of research in Google on what it takes to produce, publish a book. And I mean, real quickly, I figured out we're going to need some help. And somehow we found Kim. And what I love about what you did, Kim, for us is you demystified the entire process. All of these things that seemed, it's kind of like taking your car to the mechanic. And, if you're not mechanically inclined, the car is not working, you want to drive, but you have no idea what needs to be done. And you were able to lift the hood on this and go, guys, this is exactly what needs to be done. This is how it works. These are the options. This is what it takes to get this book to market. And for me, that was just like, thank God there's somebody that knows what to do, and was able to demystify it for us. And you explained it to us clearly. And I love that, because not only did you help us bring this to market, I felt like every step along the way, we knew what was being done, why it was being done, and all of that. And I've told so many people that I've talked to that want to write a book that are sitting there like I was at the beginning. They're just totally baffled and confused about what to do next. That just call Kim. That's our answer is call Kim. And she's going to simplify this for you, make it happen. And I mean that in all sincerity. We couldn't have done this without you. And you made the journey very, very, it was hard work. So I'm not going to say it was easy, but you made it doable and understandable. And boy, we've learned a lot in the last 5 years, haven't we, Larry?
No, we have. And I just want to put a highlighter, Kim, on what Darrell has said, is because, still to this day, I talk to so many people who want to write a book. They got great thoughts, and they've been literally working on this, or they've been doing mental gymnastics on this for years, and they're no farther along than they were 6 months prior. And I just said, listen, it's kudos to you, because it's a monumental effort to write, your first book, and then whatever happens from there. But you have to work with somebody who can guide you and so forth on this, because otherwise you're just going to get lost in the minutia and the sea of everything that's out there. And you've just been a breath of fresh air. And I know not only have you been a big blessing to Darrell and myself, but all the other people that we've sent your way.
Oh, thank you guys. Well, now I'm going to reveal the truth here.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Why don't we talk about engine? Because, you know, I remember when I first read your book, and it's Revenue Growth Engine. So you do, in your book, you literally lift the hood on what it takes to grow to, you know, to, let's see if I remember this correctly, double your business, double your sales in 3 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the book we outline how modest increases in the 2 ways to grow a business, and there's only 2 ways. You get more customers, net new revenue, or you sell more to your current client base, revenue per client. You get modest growth in both of those at the same time. And it's so fun watching business owners' eyes light up and go, wait a second, 12% growth in each one of those areas, and I can double revenue organically in 2 years. And the answer is absolutely. And so, what was a lot of fun about writing a book, Kim, and working with you on this is I had a lot of aha moments along the way in writing a book. I think one of the things that writing a book does is it really forces you to think about, okay, well, how would I explain this? How would I present this? And it really disciplines you in terms of thinking about what you really truly want to say and what your message is. And I thought what was fun to me about writing a book is I got a lot of clarity doing it, and a bunch of new ideas came out along the way. And one of those was recognizing that small growth in both those 2 areas can yield 2xing your business in 3 years. And guess what? You double your business every 3 years, you 10x in 10 years. I mean, that's like, without like doing wild and crazy things that other people recommend you do. And so I like that part of the whole journey of writing the book, is it gave me a lot of clarity in terms of what I believe. I got a ton of ideas along the way, and you sparked many of them just in our conversations as we worked through the manuscript together.
Yes, I know. And I had the same word for the both of you throughout this whole process. Because you'd both come to me and go, oh, I had this thought. And I had 2 words for you. Book 2. But it's funny because, so I'll share with you guys how we actually got connected.
Okay.
So I was on Upwork. I was a freelancer on Upwork. I was building a business on there. And Darrell, you had posted a job posting on there. And so we had connected, we had messaged a little bit, and then it all fizzled out and nothing happened. And I'm like, okay. Happens, right? Anyway, I don't know how it happened. Maybe it's like that, 6 years ago AI stuff, because all of a sudden Larry and I are connected on LinkedIn.
Well, I know exactly how that happened, Kim. I told Larry that I found you on Upwork because I had no idea like what to do. So now now you've reminded me that that's exactly what I did, because in our just at branding and different things throughout the years, and even some software development projects, I'd gone to freelance sites just to go, okay, well, who's out there that might be able to help? And I didn't know what I didn't know, but that is how we met. Now I remember that. And, I know I was talking to Larry because I was like, Larry, you need to write a book. And of course, I'm sure Larry was saying back, I don't know how to write a book. And so I'm like, I'm going to find somebody that knows how to write a book. And
I wasn't saying it like that, but he was giving you the G version of this. But here, this is what I was pleasantly surprised with is you helped me realize that I was capable of doing a whole lot more than I was capable of doing. And I became a better person through writing Selling from the Heart. I learned a lot about myself. Kim, you and I got into some deep conversations. We got to know each other really, 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 really well, through the whole process. And for people who know me, and Kim, you know me real well, Darrell knows me even better, I like to just mental gymnastics things, and because I just don't ever think it's good enough. But at a certain point in time, you just said, hey, you know what? You got to get the book out there. And I'm so glad I did, because it was just, I told Darrell when I wanted to write this, I just wanted to write a book that would pack a punch. And I didn't know what was going to happen. But the way that you helped us package this all up, and you helped me guide, and you guided me through this became This became a really good learning moment, not only for me, but for Darrell and everybody else who's worked with you. It's just been a pleasant surprise because you've taken all the pain away from doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not all of the pain, because I do remember these conversations where you're going, I'm not sure if this is good enough. I'm like, we're publishing it. You're done. We are not revising this one more time. But you know what the funny thing is the reverse is true. In as much as, you know, I've been of help to you, you both have been, you know, tremendous help to me. And I think, you know, when you find those clients or you work with people, like you said, who have the heart and who are like-minded, I have gotten just as much out of my relationship with you guys as you guys have come from me. In my book, Author to Authority, and Larry, you know this, but in one of the chapters, I tell a story how, you know, the business was almost done. Like, I had nothing coming in. I had had a horrendous year, health-wise, business-wise. Like, it was a horrible year. And I was at the point where I had no money. And I'm sitting there going, okay, God, like, you know, what do I do? Like, I don't want to give up this business. But yet, you know, within a couple hours, because I mean, you didn't even know this, but a couple hours before we had talked, I had been sitting there crying, thinking I was going to have to close the company down. And, you know, I can't remember if we talked or you emailed me, but you're like, Kim, I've got a client for you. Do you know that just changed everything in my business? Because it was a start again. It was a start. I had hope again. So, I mean, you guys don't know how much you've done for me over the years in terms of helping me grow RTI Publishing. I mean, your referrals have always been amazing, first of all, because you know amazing people. But it always just seems to come at like the right perfect time when I just really need it. And there'll be Larry or Darrell, hey, I got someone who wants to write a book. And so, you know, like, I am so thankful and grateful to you guys. It has been an incredible friendship. Actually, you guys are more like family now to me. And I can honestly say that it's been a beneficial relationship for all of us.
You know,
here.
Yeah, it has. And there's some, I want to play on the referral part of this, and it's all about relationships. And I just believe that real relationships, when you build real relationships and you find those like-minded people and you get to know them and you pour into these people, real relationships turn into some really good connections. And from good connections form referrals. And the referrals that we've shared with you are all based on trust. And right then and there, it's like, okay, I've been searching out somebody to help me. Well, here's who you need to go out and have a conversation with. There's plenty of people out there, but this is who you need to have a conversation with if you want this to happen and that to happen with a person who has your back.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit here. So I want each of you to take a few minutes and just actually talk about what your books are about. So Sherry, go in a little bit of depth about the book itself.
Go ahead, Darrell.
Yeah, well, Revenue Growth Engine was born out of a dark night of the soul. I was getting ready to present. I'd spent my whole career in half of it with one foot in the sales world. I'd started in sales management, started a sales training company years ago, and been involved in sales training and development for all kinds of companies up to Fortune 500 companies. And simultaneously, I'd also had a marketing agency for 18 years. So I'd been involved from the early days of, hey, will you build me a website, all the way through search engine optimization, get me found on Google, help me figure out social media, help me get involved in inbound and account-based marketing. And I was getting ready to present to a conference of business owners, sales leaders, and marketing leaders. And I knew that what many of them were doing wasn't really working. It was very disjointed. It wasn't getting them the results they wanted. And I looked at a blank whiteboard sitting right there, that same whiteboard. And I just started sketching out what would become the model for the Revenue Growth Engine. And I had this epiphany, because our friends in sales, and I dearly love the sales profession, and it's been, it's a passion of mine to join in revolutionizing selling. It's selling from the heart. But salespeople, we have our own language, and then marketing people, they've got their own language. And it seems like so many companies are going different directions. They're not lined up. And business owners that I talk with are frustrated. They're like, can't y'all just get along? And I had this epiphany, and this was what I realized is it's not about sales. It's not about marketing. It's about revenue. What are we doing, and what needs to be in place in a business to not only land new customers, but also to expand? So the book became this model with the ideal client in the middle, the type of client that you love working with, that needs everything that you offer. And then what are all the sales and marketing things that would need to be in place to create the Jim Collins flywheel of growth? Get them on board and cross-sell them and get that motion going in the business to drive exponential growth. So the book started out on a whiteboard, and there's a model you'll find throughout the pages of the book. And it really pulls together probably the best compliment that I've received on the book. And this goes back to you as well, Kim. Is I was on Doug Burdett's marketing book podcast, which was a super honor, by the way. And I was sandwiched right after Seth Godin. I can't believe I was on a podcast episode after the guru of gurus. But he said, Darrell, this book pulls together shelves full of books that I've read into a model. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted it to accomplish. I wanted something for a business owner to look at and go, okay, I see a template here for what we could do to accelerate our growth. And so that's the book, and it's super practical. And Kim, you helped define the model, and we were able to communicate that visually throughout the book, and then just lead to some very, very practical examples all the way through the book. And so I love putting this in the hands of business owners that say, okay, we're stuck, our business is kind of plateaued, we're ready to break through to the next level. Like I say, you just need a bigger engine. And I love telling this story, Kim. Early on, when I got my first ski boat, and I love boats, and I'm a Canadian kid. I married a Southern girl. I live in the mountains in the Mid-South, and I was pulling my boat to the lake. And one day, I'm in sales, so we're always trying to get a bigger boat. So I bought that bigger boat, and I'm pulling my boat to the lake with the same truck, the same engine I used to pull my first boat. I remember getting about halfway up this hill, going up this mountain, and going, uh-oh, I need a bigger engine. And I realized that if I was going to, fortunately, I made it to the top of that hill, but the very next day I went and bought a bigger truck with a bigger engine. Why? Because if you want, to move something bigger, you need a bigger engine. I think the analogy is true in a business as well. As your business is growing, what got you to where you are today may not be powerful enough to get you where you need to go. So a lot of business owners that are frustrated, whose businesses have plateaued at whatever level, the revenue growth engine is a model for them to think about, okay, well, what do I need to do to get more horsepower out of my sales and marketing strategy so we can grow?
Well, of course, you Canadian Ontario boy who's been missing the water. Like, hello.
That's right.
So if you're not from Ontario, you need to understand that you can go an hour almost anywhere in Ontario and hit a lake.
That's right.
Big lakes, little lakes, medium-sized lakes, the Great Lakes,
lots of
Georgia
water.
Bay.
Right? Yeah, you won't find that in Southern California. So the lakes we have in Southern California, some don't even exist anymore.
They're full of dust. But you do have that Pacific Ocean, Larry. Come on.
Oh, I know.
You got it going on in Southern California as well. But Kim, that was the journey of going, okay, what needs to be in place to build a growth engine? And I'm so excited because I've heard from large company owners, Fortune 500 company sales enablement people, all the way down to solopreneurs, that they were able to read the revenue growth engine and get a picture of what they actually needed to do to get their business moving forward. And thanks to you helping me communicate that clearly It's so good to hear, those words back. And, being an author, one of the fun things, I literally had this call earlier today with a friend of mine who leads a peer group in an industry. And he said, Darrell, he goes, every one of our meetings, somebody brings up revenue growth engine. And just to realize that, hey, you put that out there and it is helping good companies do good things, because nothing happens in a business until revenue comes in the top of the P&L statement. So that's been a lot of fun. And revenue growth engine, when you're an author, you're putting your heart and your mind out to the world. And so in a lot of ways, it's a gift to the business world just to go, okay, here's a model. And I love hearing back from people. They've taken it and it's succeeded for them.
Well, because I helped you so intimately with the book, you did a course earlier this year, which I got the privilege of taking advantage of. And I sat there and I was remembering you teaching on this, and I thought, wow, like when you did the book, it was there, but when you did the teaching this year, it was like it had fully cemented, it was like a seed that was now growing into this tree. And I listened to you and I was just like, my jaw dropped, because I was like, oh, like sometimes you write the book and even the process, like you said, of writing the book, there's so much clarity in that. But when you've sat with the book for a while and you're teaching it and you're training it and you're living it out, all of a sudden it just kind of comes alive. And that's what I've seen in you, Darrell, is this, the message of revenue growth engine has just so much come alive in you. And audience, I highly recommend, like I'm hoping Darrell will give us a link here, because his mini courses and his bigger courses, they are amazing. Now, some of it, the book is designed for bigger companies that have sales and marketing teams. And one of the things I love is how you get them to work together. But, me as a very small business owner, predominantly solopreneur with a team of freelancers, I found so much value in the book. So yeah, we're going to get a link from you so that the audience can definitely check you out, Darrell.
Yeah, you can just text the word revenue to 21,000. So text the word revenue to 21,000 or go to revenuegrowthengine.com. You can actually get tons of resources there. So,
okay, Larry, your turn.
How do I follow that? But no, I tell you what, selling from the heart was, when I put it together, that was me. That was me and how I led my life. So I sold copiers in Los Angeles for almost 30 years. It's the second largest city in the United States, a highly commoditized channel. Some of the sales practices are laggard in nature. But what I learned a long time ago was, if I was going to stand out and be different, I had to be true to myself. Thus the subtitle, How Your Authentic Self Sells You, is I'm I just grew up with a highly relational mother and a rocket scientist for a father, literally. And I brought the best of both worlds to the forefront. I brought high relations to an industry where relationships were just broken and dysfunctional. But I brought a strict process to the forefront, and what I learned from my father, and I smashed this all together and I just made it my own. And in selling from the heart, I take people on a journey, and that journey is the journey I went through. It was how to uncover who you are, how to bring your authentic self to the forefront, because I've often said in selling from the heart, when you bring your authentic self to the forefront, you have no competition. And it's really knowing who you are. So I take people on a very deep journey into unpacking who they are. And then they can then develop the sales skills and really layer upon this. But what's really interesting, and Darrell already knows this, as I'm writing the book, I go, I can't believe I'm writing a book that talks about my own journey in the copier channel. Is anyone ever going to read this book? And serious.
That's actually the next topic of conversation we're going to have.
But in all sincerity, it's just, let's just face it, trust isn't where it needs to be in sales. Salespeople are viewed upon through a negative lens and so forth. But when you can bring the best version of yourself to your forefront, when you truly believe relationships matter, then watch what starts to happen. And I just walk people on a very nice journey in the whole entire book on how they can unpack this. And, like Darrell was saying, his books resonated through multiple industries. I can't believe my book has resonated in the industries that it's resonated in, from small corporations to large corporations to now Fortune 25 and Fortune 50 companies who have latched on and say, we want to become a selling from the heart company. And when I heard that and I shared it with Darrell, I go, this all started from a podcast 6 years ago and Darrell gnawing on my ear to write a book. And it was just a book on how I carried myself. But it just goes to show you that, you know what, if you carry yourself in a certain manner and good things happen. And I've learned a lot about myself through this whole journey. But more importantly is I can't believe the number of people that have come back to me and said, you know what, this is exactly the book I needed to read at this point in my life, because you said the things that I was thinking.
Yeah.
You've just put it into play where I can actually turn it into something.
Yeah. It's funny, from both of your books, there was different things. So Darrell, there were so many practical things that I hadn't thought of in terms of growing my business and how it is those small little improvements. And, when you talk about getting new customers and net growth, one of the first books that I had written when I was in direct sales was How to Sell $10,795 a year. So I actually had a formula for those in direct sales. Like, these are people that are selling lipstick, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking big companies, right? So if you're selling lipsticks, it's hard to sell $10,000 worth of lipsticks. But I wrote a book, and basically the book was a very small book. The formula was basically two things: get more customers and sell more to the customers that you had. And the formula was actually pretty simple. It was, if you would either increase your customer count, if you either increase how much you're selling per sale to that person, or if you increase how many times per year you sell to them, you're going to have like this revenue growth. And I remember when we were working on your book, I'm like, I had forgotten that. And so it was such a reminder to me. And I'm like, oh man, like this was like, oh, Kim, you forgot, right? And then with you, Darrell, I remember when I was first learning to sell, and I had a lot of bad experiences with people training me, and they were trying to teach me how to be manipulative and that. And I couldn't do it. Like, I try, and it wasn't me. And, my sales results showed it because there weren't any. And I remember when we were working on your book, it was so refreshing to have someone of your caliber just affirm in me that it's okay for me to be authentic. It's okay for me to be Kim. Kim can be Kim and sell. And even though I was selling at that point, it wasn't that it wasn't, but I just remember there was like this peace came over my soul. It was like I could finally breathe and just be, it's okay to be me. And so you're one of the things I have said on the podcast a few times, because people have asked me, what do you get out of being a publisher? And one of the things I always say is basically I get a university degree in just about any topic I want for free. In fact, people pay me and I get a university education.
Wow.
But what you just said is what I've always shared with Darrell. We get really cool guests that come on the Selling from the Heart podcast, and I got to go back and watch these things actually with a notepad and start taking notes. It's the exact same experience. You can learn so much. I mean, I've learned so much on this whole journey, from the podcast to the book, to turning the book into a business with Darrell. It's been a ride. It's been one heck of a ride.
Yeah. So what I would love for you guys to talk about next, because most of the people that I have on the show that are authors are more in their beginning stages of getting their book out there. But you guys have been doing this for quite a while now, and you've achieved some pretty credible results. So, why don't both of you talk about, the journey of selling from the heart, revenue growth engine? What have been some of the results that you've seen from getting the book out there in your own lives?
I think for me, it all started through building community. And it's just the power of social. I took the same philosophy that I held myself accountable in sales. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I learned this from Darrell, because Darrell's got an alliteration sickness. All I did was educate and engage and excite people into a conversation. I made my book and what we were doing personal, and it started to resonate. And everybody who engaged with me, I engaged back, and I built a really good audience around this, a deep community that would stand up and say, yes, we want to sell from the heart. And when it came time to asking for help, they helped. It's because I poured into my community and I poured into my network, and I educated them and I inspired them. And there's two things, then I'll throw it Darrell's way. I just wanted to keep it short. Was leaders do two things really well. Leaders inspire and influence people. They inspire and influence people to helping them see and achieve things they don't think they can do on their own. That's what I was doing with selling from the heart. Is I wanted to inspire people to say, you know what, they can do this, and it's okay to be you and sell the way you know you can sell. And I wanted to influence them into better ways of selling. That was going to create what I call sales sustainability. And that's what started to happen with selling from the heart. And if you would have asked me this 6 years ago, fast forward to today, it's August 17th, as we're talking 2023, would all of this happen? I'd say you're crazy. But I've got a good group of inner circle that's guided us and said, you got to take this and turn it into a business. And we've just been consistent, and I've been disciplined with it. And there's times I wanted to give up. And there's times, right, I would just literally cry on my wife's shoulder and say, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I'd gnaw on Darrell's ear, and he goes, no, look at what you've built. And now this thing has turned into a full-fledged business where we're helping companies become better, growing their business, growing relationships, growing their salespeople, growing more revenue at the way that can become more sustainable.
Now, let's just explore this for a little bit. So that's more the business side of it, Larry. Let's actually take a look at the book, because, the book has allowed you to do a few things. There were some stages that you wanted to get on, that you were able to get on because you were now an author. Like, I'm sure I can release this, but your book has been accepted in Barnes and Nobles. Like, you've done some amazing things just with the book. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
It's just, Darrell, gosh, man, I'm not a brat. I just don't like talk. I just silently go about, sorry. I mean, I'm stumped, but I silently go about doing what I do. But the book allowed me, right? Just because I started building a community and building a network, and I was consistent, and I showed up every day, and I engaged with people, it started to catch the ears and the eyes and the hearts of people that I looked up to. And I've been on some pretty good stages with some people that I've looked up to. But more than anything else, it's just, this whole journey's enabled me to build this whole entire business that I wouldn't have been able to do before. The book's just given me a voice, and I've just been consistent. I've showed up every day. I've been disciplined about it. I write every week. There's not a day that goes by I'm not posting something about the book. I'm keeping the book out in the forefront. I will tell you this, here we are, we're almost 5 years later on the book, and Selling from the Heart's got more steam now than it did 4.5 years ago. And we're selling more books now than we did 4.5 and 5 years ago. It goes back to, there's really not a key. There's not a silver bullet that I can tell somebody or a quick tip. It's just, you got to consistently show up every day. You got to be disciplined. You got to build an engaged network. You got to believe, you got to have confidence. These are all the things I've worked on. And it wasn't like that 5-6 years ago. You know that. Darrell knows that. It just, I consistently showed up. I engaged, and I found people who believed in the things I believed in, and I helped them become better. It's all about building network and community. And that's what allowed this to happen. And it's just, it got into the hands of the right people, and it got into their networks, and people started talking, and they wanted to know more. And that's really how this whole thing came about.
Yeah, Darrell, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's been an incredible door opener, and there's something. It's funny. For example, you can send a postcard, an email, or something to somebody, and it's going to hit the dustbin pretty quickly. But when you send someone a book, it's a very, very professional door opener and business card and all of that. And not only that, I love, this is on my phone. I love this. This is in one of my clients' offices. And this is their giveaway books. And I'm sitting there, they have people come into their office and they give away copies of my book. Like, what in the world? How could you ask for anything more cool than that? Like, it's actually becoming a referral source on the fly. And so I think, to me, it's been really powerful. The other thing that's been powerful business wise, and a book, unless you were a New York Times bestselling author, the book in itself is not going to be, it's not going to buy you a beach house. But
Amen.
what the book will do is it enables business models to be put together behind it. And so that's what I like. I'm a growth engine guy. I like putting together frameworks and models. So we're now able to go in and help companies design and implement an upgraded revenue growth engine. And there's a consulting model and a model around that is really powerful. And of course, it's selling from the heart as well. We coach leaders, train sales teams, and help them build playbooks to be able to accelerate their sales growth. And all of that is, around the frameworks in selling from the heart. And so, to me, what's cool about that is it provides, that first step for somebody, right? $20 or whatever, the price of a book is step one. And then as they begin to flip through it and start reading the book, even if they don't read the whole thing, and very few people read a book cover to cover, they begin to go, this person knows what they're talking about. Like, they,
exactly.
And at that point, you step into that first meeting with somebody with a level of credibility that, quite frankly, without a book, most people will have to spend most of that first meeting trying to establish credibility. But when you walk into a meeting with a book, you walk in with a level of credibility, and you're straight into great conversation. And it really helps things move forward faster in the business. And I think that right there is, is an investment of time and money to create a book. Absolutely. But that investment starts to pay off when you get into conversations with prospects and they, they're ready to listen. They're ready to ask questions and pay attention. And that right there, I think business wise has been something that has been tremendously helpful. And it's a massive competitive advantage.
You know what, Darrell, I couldn't agree with you more. And I love the fact that you said that you don't make the money necessarily off of the book. Because I think that's a misconception. It's like that field of game.
Well, it's so funny. It's so funny that you say that. I remember I had a conversation. This was like less than a month ago with somebody, and they go, "Yeah, you probably want us to buy a bunch of books." I said, "Hey, listen, with the price of gas in Southern California, go ahead and buy some books. I might be able to put a half a gallon's worth of gas in my car based on what I get for books. But it's what you do. It's what you do with it." And Darrell's alluded, it's a great door opener, but it's allowed us to build selling from the heart to where it is because I wrote the book, and the book's now turned into a full-fledged business. And we both bring the best of both worlds to selling from the heart, and Darrell does obviously with revenue growth engine. So it's been quite a ride, Kim.
It has been. It has been. Okay, audience, I'm going to give you a little hint here about how to get on Darrell's good side. Send
this
him
one's easy.
Maple syrup.
That's right. Hey, I am a Canadian stranded in the southern United States. There is no maple syrup here, not the good stuff. So yes, that is definitely a way to get on my good side. Kim has been a very generous and kind supplier of maple syrup. So, and Larry's enjoyed some of it as well.
I
When we've hung
have.
out, and yeah.
Oh, well, you know what, you guys, I think we're kind of bringing it into the end here. What I would love for each of you to do. First of all, I'll get you each to share a final thought, and then how can people connect with you guys?
Yeah, final thought. If you are on the fence about writing a book, get off the fence and give Kim a call, get RTI engaged, at least take a look at it. It's doable, and it's something. Is it hard work? Of course it is, but it's something you're going to look back on, a year from now and go, wow, I'm so thankful I went through that process. And the rewards and the other end are going to be fantastic. So if you've got a book in here or both, go, get moving on this. Don't sit on it. You don't need to. There's too much good stuff on the other side of it. So get engaged, get that book written, get Kim's team to get that book published, and it's going to unlock a lot of great things for you.
Thank you,
And
Darrell.
I would say this is, thoughts become things, and they really do. Is I never thought I could ever write. So, I could leave somebody with this is I believe we all can write. We all have the capability of writing. It just requires practice. And all the thoughts that go in your head, just start journaling it and just start journaling it. And if you don't want to journal it, record it. And then find a coach and a mentor that can possibly help you become a better writer. And then once you feel you're at that stage, reach out to somebody like Kim or somebody that you feel comfortable with and say, you know what, I'm ready to package my thoughts. I'm ready to turn these thoughts into things, which is a book that can really help. And if you want to know more about what we're up to at Selling from the Heart, you can go to sellingfromtheheart.net. You can find Darrell or myself. We're fairly active on LinkedIn. You can find the Selling from the Heart podcast on your favorite podcast channels. And if you want a free signed copy of Selling from the Heart, just go to sellingfromtheheart.net/book. And I'd be more than happy to sign and send you one.
And he does. And
I do. Because you've been the recipient of quite a few.
Yes, I've got mine here.
There we go.
My newest copy.
I know, the new edition and thank you card and all of that. Look at that. Published now, published author, Barnes and Noble. Larry, congratulations.
Thank you.
So exciting.
Wow, what can I say? I don't really want to end this conversation, but I think because I love you guys so much.
I love you too.
Likewise.
So audience, I would love for you, check out Selling from the Heart Revenue Growth Engine. I can tell you for a fact, because I worked on both books intimately. If you can be intimate with a book, I have been. But they are both awesome books, and you are going to receive such tremendous value just from reading it. But, check out the Selling from the Heart podcast. Go to Revenue Growth Engine. Check these guys out. Follow them on LinkedIn. You will not be disappointed. So this has been Larry Levine, Darrell Amy, and Kim Thompson-Pinder on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Bye now.